The day I became the most hated man in Cedar Springs was the same day I became its most powerful. $500. That's what Karen Mitchell and her homeowners association fined me for fishing with my heartbroken daughter. What they didn't know was that I had 3.8 million reasons to fight back, and enough determination to use every single one of them. If you're watching this while hiding from your own HOA nightmare, drop a comment telling me where you're escaping to, because this story will keep you glued to your screen until the very end. My name is David Harper, and 6 months ago I was living what most would call the American dream. I'd spent 12 years building a software development company, eventually selling it to a tech giant for enough money to retire at 41. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that money can't fix everything. My wife Rachel died in a car accident last year, leaving me to raise our 13-year-old daughter Emma alone. The grief nearly destroyed both of us. Emma withdrew completely, barely speaking for months. The only activity that seemed to bring her any peace was fishing, something Rachel had taught us both during family weekends at Lake Hartwell. So when I decided we needed a fresh start, I specifically searched for a home near water where Emma and I could heal together. Cedar Springs seemed perfect on paper. Beautiful homes, excellent schools, and a stunning 12-acre lake right in the center of the community. The realtor mentioned there was a homeowners association, but assured me it was just standard maintenance stuff. She did hesitate slightly when mentioning the HOA president, Karen Mitchell, describing her as very committed to, community standards. I should have paid attention to that. Warning, I found out exactly what that meant on a peaceful Saturday morning in March. Emma and I had been fishing at the community dock for about an hour when she caught her first bass in months. For the first time since Rachel's death, I saw my daughter genuinely smile as she carefully released the fish back into the water. That's when a sharp voice cut through our moment of healing. "Excuse me, but what do you think you're doing?" The woman approaching us was in her late 50s, dressed in expensive workout clothes despite it being 7 in the morning. Her blonde hair was styled in what I can only describe as the classic "let me speak to the manager" cut, and she carried a tablet like a weapon. "Good morning," I said, trying to stay friendly. "I'm David Harper. We moved into the house on Willow Creek Drive last month. This is my daughter Emma." She completely ignored my outstretched hand. "Mr. Harper, I'm Karen Mitchell, president of the Cedar Springs Homeowners Association. Fishing is strictly prohibited in our community lake. This is a direct violation of HOA regulations, and I'm issuing you a $500 fine." I felt Emma freeze beside me. "I'm sorry, there must be a mistake." The realtor specifically mentioned fishing as one of the community amenities. It was actually one of the main reasons we chose this neighborhood. Karen's expression didn't soften. The fishing prohibition was implemented 4 weeks ago following a comprehensive community safety review. All residents were notified via email and certified mail. She showed me her tablet. "Ignorance of the rules doesn't excuse violations. We never received any notification about this change," I protested. "I personally oversee all community communications," Karen replied coldly. "The notification was sent to every household. Perhaps you should monitor your mail more carefully." Emma tugged at my sleeve, her eyes filling with tears. This was supposed to be our healing place, and now this woman was destroying it with bureaucratic cruelty. "Mrs. Mitchell, my daughter and I are just trying to spend some quality time together. We're practicing catch and release, and we always clean up after ourselves. Surely we can work something out." Karen glanced dismissively at Emma, then back at me. "Mr. Harper, perhaps you don't understand how things work in Cedar Springs. We maintain certain standards here. This isn't a public fishing pond. Our residents expect a particular atmosphere of sophistication and tranquility." The implication was crystal clear. We didn't belong in her vision of community perfection. "We'll pack up," I said quietly, putting my arm around Emma's shoulders. "Please email me the details of the fine and the updated regulations." "Excellent. I'm glad we understand each other. Do check your email more carefully in the future, Mr. Harper. We wouldn't want any further misunderstandings." As we gathered our equipment, Emma wiped her eyes. "Dad, why was that lady so mean?" "We weren't hurting anything. I didn't have a good answer. Some people care more about rules than they do about people, sweetheart." That evening, After checking every email folder and finding no notification about the fishing ban, I began researching Karen Mitchell and our HOA more thoroughly. What I discovered was disturbing. Karen had been HOA president for 7 consecutive years, running unopposed in recent elections. Her day job was running Mitchell Property Solutions, a company specializing in premium community management. I found numerous complaints online about her aggressive enforcement tactics and excessive fines. Most revealing was her social media presence. Just 2 weeks earlier, Karen had posted photos from an elegant wine party at the Lakeside Pavilion, celebrating our community's commitment to maintaining sophisticated recreational standards. So fishing was banned for disrupting the peaceful atmosphere, but wine parties were perfectly acceptable. I also discovered something crucial buried in public records. The lake wasn't actually owned by the HOA. It belonged to Summit Development Corporation, the original builders of Cedar Springs. The HOA had a recreational lease agreement that was set to expire in just 3 months. My next call was to my attorney, Jennifer Walsh, who had handled my business sale. "Jennifer, I need you to research something for me. What would be involved in purchasing lakefront property from a financially distressed development company?" "That depends on their situation, but distressed sellers often accept below-market offers for quick cash closings." "Why do you ask?" "I'm considering a real estate investment." Over the next week, I hired a private investigator to research Summit Development Corporation. What we found was fascinating. The company was in serious financial trouble, having overextended on commercial properties during the recession. They were quietly liquidating assets to avoid bankruptcy, and the Cedar Springs Lake was one of their few remaining unencumbered properties. Meanwhile, Karen escalated her harassment campaign against my family. Suddenly, I was receiving violation notices for issues that had never been problems before. My mailbox was supposedly 2 inches too tall. My lawn had unauthorized plant varieties, and even my garage door was cited for being the wrong shade of beige. The fines started accumulating rapidly. Within 2 weeks, I owed over $1,800 in violations. When I tried to appeal, Karen claimed my appeals were filed incorrectly and assessed additional late fees. It was clearly a systematic campaign to force us out of the neighborhood. The final straw came when Emma returned from school crying, "Dad, the kids are saying we're troublemakers. Madison's mom told her we're trying to ruin the neighborhood and that we don't belong here." Madison's mother, I learned, was Karen's closest friend and ally on the HOA board. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fighting Karen through her rigged system, I was going to change the rules of the game entirely. My first call was to Robert Chen, Summit Development's bankruptcy attorney. The meeting took place in downtown Atlanta, and Robert was refreshingly direct about their situation. "Mr. Harper, I'll be honest with you. We need to liquidate the lake property immediately. We're asking $400,000, but we'd consider $350 for a cash deal with quick closing." "What about the HOA's lease agreement?" "It expires in 10 weeks, and frankly, they've been more trouble than they're worth. The lease only pays us $1,800 annually, but Karen Mitchell calls our office constantly with demands and complaints. So if I purchase the property, I could terminate their access." "Absolutely. The lease agreement can be terminated by either party with 30 days' notice." 2 weeks later, I was the proud owner of 12 acres of prime lakefront property, including the lake where Karen Mitchell had banned my daughter from fishing. My purchase price was $325,000, paid in cash with a 7-day closing. My first act as the new owner was to send Karen a certified letter terminating the recreational lease agreement, effective in 30 days. The letter was professionally written and completely legal, but I included a personal note. Per our previous conversation regarding fishing policies, I found a permanent solution to my family's recreational needs. I also installed security cameras around the property and hired a groundskeeper to monitor access. Within a week, I had private property, no trespassing signs posted at every entrance to the lake area. Karen called me within hours of receiving my letter, her voice shaking with rage. "What do you think you're doing? That lake belongs to this community." "Actually, Karen, the lake belongs to me now. I have the deed to prove it. This is outrageous. The HOA will sue you for theft of community property. You're welcome to consult with your attorneys. They'll confirm that my purchase was completely legal and that I have full property rights. What do you want? She finally asked. I want to fish with my daughter without being harassed about it. Beyond that, I haven't decided on my long-term plans for the property. The community's reaction was swift and dramatic. Some residents were furious about losing lake access, but many others were surprisingly supportive. David Chen, my neighbor, called to congratulate me. Karen's been terrorizing people here for years. It's about time someone stood up to her. Over the following days, I received dozens of calls from neighbors sharing their own horror stories about Karen's authoritarian leadership. Maria Santos had been fined for her children being too loud at the community pool. Robert Williams was cited for holiday decorations that violated an aesthetic standard Karen had invented. Linda Foster was penalized for having the wrong type of flower in her front garden. A pattern emerged. Karen used selective rule enforcement to target residents she didn't like, while her friends and allies received preferential treatment. She had created a system of favoritism and intimidation that had gone unchallenged for years. 2 weeks after I terminated lake access, Karen called an emergency community meeting to address the crisis. I didn't attend, but several neighbors filled me in on what happened. Karen had opened by calling me a hostile outside agitator, trying to destroy the community. But when residents started asking questions about how this situation had occurred, her explanations fell apart. People wanted to know why the HOA didn't own the lake in the first place, why no one had been warned about the potential sale, and most importantly, why fishing had been banned just weeks before the property was sold. Karen couldn't provide satisfactory answers to any of these questions. Her defensive responses and finger-pointing only made residents more suspicious about her leadership and decision-making. That's when I decided to make my position clear to the entire community. I drafted a letter that was hand-delivered to every household in Cedar Springs. Dear neighbors, the letter began. As the new owner of the lake property, I want to address the concerns about my purchase and future plans. I bought this property after being harassed and financially penalized for the simple act of fishing with my grieving daughter. Rather than submit to this treatment, I chose to solve the problem by purchasing the property in question. The lake was never owned by the HOA. It belonged to Summit Development under a lease that was expiring regardless of my purchase. I will not provide community access as long as the current HOA leadership remains in power. If residents want lake access restored, I encourage you to elect new leadership committed to fair and transparent governance. The letter sparked intense community debate. Within days, a group of residents led by Linda Foster and David Chen organized a petition drive to recall Karen and her board allies. The recall effort gained momentum quickly as more residents found the courage to speak out about years of authoritarian rule. Karen fought back desperately. She hired a lawyer to explore forcing me to sell the property back to the community. She spread rumors that the lake was contaminated and dangerous. She even tried to have the city declare eminent domain, claiming the lake was essential public infrastructure. None of these tactics worked. The recall petition gathered over 300 signatures, well above the threshold needed. The legal threats were empty since my purchase was completely legitimate, and the contamination claims were debunked when I published professional water quality reports showing the lake was actually cleaner under my management. The recall election was scheduled for the first Saturday in November. Karen and 2 of her closest allies were up for removal, with reform candidates ready to replace them. Emma and I spent Election Day fishing at our lake, watching neighbors line up to vote at the community center. The symbolism was perfect. We were doing exactly what Karen had tried to prevent, on property we now owned, while the community decided whether to embrace change. The results were decisive. Karen and her allies were removed by margins of over 60%. Linda Foster was elected as the new HOA president, with David Chen and Robert Williams joining the board. 3 days after the election, Linda called to request a meeting about lake access negotiations. Mr. Harper, the new board wants to move quickly on restoring community access. We believe we can work out an arrangement that protects your interests while serving the community. I'm listening. We're prepared to offer a 5-year renewable lease at $20,000 annually, with your approval required for any changes to lake use policies. We'd also establish a lake management committee with your participation. What about governance reforms? Linda handed me a comprehensive document. We've drafted new HOA bylaws with term limits, transparent financial reporting, an independent appeals process, and anti-discrimination protections. We're scheduling a community vote for ratification next month. The proposed bylaws were impressive, real reforms that would prevent future abuse of power. But I had one additional requirement. I want a formal apology from the HOA for the harassment my family experienced, and I want assurance that Karen Mitchell is permanently barred from any leadership role. We can provide the apology. As for Karen, the new bylaws include ethics clauses that would prevent her from serving again. She's also facing potential legal issues related to financial irregularities we discovered during the transition. 3 weeks later, the community voted overwhelmingly to ratify the new bylaws and approve the lake access agreement. At the signing ceremony, Emma and I received a formal written apology from the HOA board. Linda, Foster read the apology aloud. The Cedar Springs Homeowners Association formally apologizes to David Harper and his daughter Emma for the discriminatory treatment they experienced under previous leadership. We acknowledge that these actions were unfair and contrary to our community values. We are committed to ensuring no resident ever experiences such treatment again. Emma beamed as the crowd applauded. Later that day, as we walked around the lake that was now open to everyone again, she looked up at me with a smile. "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of what we did?" "I think she'd be very proud, sweetheart." We stood up to a bully and made things better for everyone. 6 months later, Cedar Springs had become a model for HOA governance reform. Karen Mitchell had moved away after facing multiple lawsuits from residents she had unfairly targeted. Emma had started a junior fishing club that met at our lake every weekend, teaching other kids the skills her mother had taught her. Most importantly, we had found our peace. The lake access fees helped offset my maintenance costs, and the community partnership ensured the property remained beautiful. Emma had made friends, was excelling in school, and had regained the confidence that Karen's bullying had nearly destroyed. Sometimes people ask if I regret getting into such a major conflict over fishing. The answer is always no. We didn't just win the right to fish. We won the right to live in a community based on fairness and respect, instead of fear and intimidation. The morning sun reflected off the water as Emma reeled in another base, laughing with her friends from the fishing club. Karen Mitchell had tried to take this away from us with arbitrary rules and financial penalties. Instead, she had motivated me to create something much better, a real community where families could heal and grow together without fear. That's what real victory looks like. Not just winning your own battle, but ensuring the same battle never has to be fought again. If this story inspired you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of people fighting back against bullies and unfair treatment. Have you ever dealt with an abusive HOA or power-hungry neighbor? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might inspire our next video. Remember, sometimes the best way to win isn't to play by their rules, but to change the game entirely. Until next time, keep standing up for what's right.